Sarah stared at her phone, her hands trembling. 23 missed calls, 37 text messages, all in the last 2 hours, all from the same person. Where are you? Why aren't you answering? You're being so selfish right now. I'm worried sick. How could you do this to me? She turned the phone face down on the cafe table, her coffee growing cold. For the first time in 3 years, she'd gone to have coffee with a friend without asking permission. For the first time in 3 years, she'd turned off her location sharing. And for the first time in 3 years, she felt something she barely recognized anymore, a tiny spark of herself. But that spark was drowning in guilt, fear, and confusion. If you've ever felt like you're walking on eggshells in your own life, if you've ever questioned your own reality because someone else keeps rewriting it, if you've ever felt trapped by someone who claims to love you while slowly erasing who you are, this story is for you. Because Sarah's journey from complete control to reclaiming her identity isn't just her story. It's the story of thousands of people who have faced the invisible prison of narcissistic abuse and found their way out. And today, you're going to learn exactly how she did it. 3 years earlier, Sarah had been a different person. She was an art teacher who painted on weekends, had a close-knit group of friends, and spent holidays with her family. She was spontaneous, creative, and confident. Then she met Marcus at a gallery opening. He was charming, attentive, and seemed genuinely fascinated by everything she said. He called her his missing piece after their second date. He introduced her to his mother after 3 weeks. He told her he'd never felt this way about anyone. It felt like destiny. Looking back now, Sarah could see all the red flags she'd missed. But when you're being love-bombed by someone who seems perfect, you don't see the trap being set. The changes started small. Marcus would get quiet when she mentioned her friends. I just feel like they don't really get you like I do, he'd say. They seem kind of shallow, don't you think? He'd show up unannounced at her apartment. I missed you, he'd explain. Is that a crime? When she'd express discomfort, he'd turn it around. Wow, I'm trying to be romantic and you're making me feel like a stalker. Maybe I care too much. Within 6 months, Sarah had moved in with him. Within a year, she'd stopped painting. Her friends had slowly drifted away after months of canceled plans and unanswered texts. Family dinners became sources of tension because Marcus would sulk for days afterward, claiming her parents looked down on him. By year 3, Sarah's world had shrunk to the size of Marcus's approval. She'd quit her teaching job because Marcus convinced her the stress was bad for their relationship. He made enough money for both of them, he said. She should focus on being happy and taking care of their home. But here's what she'd really lost. Her income, her independence, her social connections, her hobbies, her confidence, her sense of self. She'd gained constant surveillance, daily criticism disguised as concern, unpredictable mood swings, and a crushing fear that if she ever tried to leave, she wouldn't survive on her own anymore. Marcus had spent 3 years carefully dismantling every support system she had, every piece of her identity, every escape route, and he'd done it all while claiming he loved her more than anything. The stakes weren't just her happiness anymore. They were her entire existence. The moment that changed everything happened on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Sarah was at the grocery store, Marcus's detailed list in her hand. He'd texted her 3 times already. Don't forget the organic milk. Make sure the bananas aren't too ripe. Call me when you're done. As she reached for the milk, another shopper accidentally bumped her cart. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, the woman said, laughing. I'm completely distracted today. My daughter just got accepted to art school and I'm texting everyone the news. Art school? That's wonderful, Sarah said automatically. She's been working toward this for years. You know how it is when you have that creative calling. Nothing else matters. The woman beamed. Are you artistic at all? Sarah opened her mouth to say no, that she wasn't creative, that she'd never been good at anything like that. The words Marcus had embedded in her mind over 3 years. But instead, something broke. "I used to paint," she heard herself whisper. "I used to teach art." The woman's face brightened. "Used to? Oh, you should get back to it. Life's too short to abandon the things that make us come alive." Such simple words, such obvious advice. But they hit Sarah like a freight train. When had she stopped coming alive? When had she accepted that her life was about managing Marcus's moods, following Marcus's rules, and shrinking herself small enough to fit in Marcus's world? She stood in the dairy aisle, tears streaming down her face, while the stranger asked if she was okay. "I don't know," Sarah answered honestly. "I don't know if I'm okay. I don't know if I've been okay for a very long time." That night, while Marcus slept, Sarah did something she hadn't done in 3 years. She Googled, "Why do I feel controlled in my relationship?" What she found had a name: narcissistic abuse. And as she read through the patterns, love bombing, isolation, gaslighting, emotional manipulation, covert control, she saw her entire relationship reflected back at her like a mirror she'd been avoiding for years. The intermittent reinforcement, moments of intense affection, followed by cold withdrawal, keeping her constantly trying to earn back his approval. The triangulation, how he'd mention other women to make her jealous, to make her compete for his attention. The moving goalposts, no matter what she did, it was never quite right, never quite enough. The D.A.R.V.O. When she'd bring up concerns, he'd deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender, somehow ending every conversation with her apologizing to him. Sarah sat in the dark, her phone illuminating her face, and she saw the truth clearly for the first time. She wasn't crazy, she wasn't oversensitive, she wasn't broken. She was being systematically destroyed by someone who claimed to love her. Knowledge, Sarah quickly learned, wasn't the same as power. Understanding that Marcus was a narcissist didn't magically give her the strength to leave. In fact, it made things harder because now she knew what she was dealing with, and how dangerous it could be to try to escape. She read the stories. The escalation that happens when a narcissist senses they're losing control. The smear campaigns. The hoovering attempts. The complete lack of empathy that makes rational conversation impossible. But she also read the success stories. People who'd gotten out and rebuilt their lives. People who'd found themselves again. Sarah decided to test the waters. She started small. She signed up for an online art class, something she could do on her laptop while Marcus was at work. He found out within 3 days. "What's this charge on our account?" he asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "Art Mastery Online." "Oh, it's just a class. I thought I'd try painting again." "Without discussing it with me?" The temperature in the room dropped. "After everything I do for you, you go behind my back and spend our money on some hobby?" "It was $75, Marcus. I didn't think." "That's the problem. You never think. You're so impulsive, Sarah. This is exactly why you can't handle money." He was pacing now, building momentum. "I work 60 hours a week so you can stay home and relax, and this is how you show appreciation? By wasting money on something you'll quit in 2 weeks, just like you quit everything else?" Sarah felt the familiar rush of shame and confusion. Was he right? Had she been thoughtless? Selfish? "I'm sorry," she heard herself saying. "You're right. I should have asked." "Damn right you should have." He stopped, looked at her with those eyes that could shift from cold to warm in an instant. "Look, baby, I'm not trying to be controlling. I'm trying to protect you. You know you have a tendency to waste money and time on things that don't matter. I'm just looking out for us." He pulled her into a hug, and Sarah felt her body tense, a response she'd never noticed before. "Let's cancel the class and do something together this weekend instead. Just you and me. Doesn't that sound better?" Sarah nodded against his chest, but something inside her had shifted. She noticed the pattern now. Every time she reached for something that was hers, he reframed it as her being broken, impulsive, selfish. Every time she tried to spread her wings, he convinced her they were damaged, and she needed him to fly. The failed attempt taught her something crucial. She couldn't reason with him, compromise with him, or expect him to support her growth. The only way out was complete and strategic separation. But how do you leave someone who's slowly convinced you that you can't survive without them? Sarah began to prepare in secret. She started treating her escape like a covert operation because that's exactly what it needed to be. Narcissists don't let go easily, and they definitely don't let go peacefully. Step 1. She reconnected with her old friend Emma, the one she'd been having coffee with that day. She'd apologized for disappearing, and Emma, bless her, had simply said, "I'm just glad you're back." Emma became her lifeline, the person she could be honest with, the person who reminded her that what she was experiencing wasn't normal, wasn't love, wasn't okay. Step 2. She started squirreling away money. Marcus controlled the finances, but she found small ways. She'd ask for cash at the grocery store checkout and hide it. She'd sell some old jewelry online and create a secret bank account. $50 here, $100 there. It wasn't much, but it was possibility. Step 3. She documented everything. Screenshots of the controlling texts, notes about the incidents, dates, times, patterns. Not because she planned to use them legally, but because she knew her own mind would try to betray her. Narcissists are masters at rewriting history, and she needed proof for herself when he inevitably tried to gaslight her into coming back. Step 4. She educated herself obsessively. She read about trauma bonds, why it's so hard to leave even when you know you should. She learned about the cycle of narcissistic abuse. She studied gray rock technique, no contact, and how to predict and prepare for the extinction burst that would come when she left. Step 5. She got strategic about timing. She couldn't just storm out during an argument. She needed him to be out of the house, preferably for several hours. She needed a place to go. She needed her important documents. It took 3 months of careful planning, 3 months of pretending everything was fine while she built her escape route, 3 months of wearing a mask over her mask, playing the compliant partner while secretly plotting her freedom. And then, one Friday morning, Marcus left for a weekend business trip. This was it. Sarah's hands shook as she pulled out the 2 suitcases she'd hidden in the back of the guest room closet. She'd already identified what she'd take: clothes, toiletries, her old laptop, important documents, a few irreplaceable photos from before Marcus. She'd leave behind the furniture, the household items, the life they'd built together. None of it mattered. None of it was worth her soul. Emma pulled up in her car at 10:47 a.m. By 11:30, Sarah was gone. She left a note, brief, clear, final. "I'm leaving. Don't try to contact me. I need to do this for my mental health. I wish you well." No room for negotiation. No explanation he could argue with. No weak spots he could exploit. As Emma drove away from the house, Sarah looked back one time, and then she looked forward. The next 72 hours were hell. Marcus started with confusion. "Baby, what's going on? Please just talk to me." Then concern. "I'm worried about you. You're not thinking clearly. Please come home so we can work this out." Then anger. "After everything I've done for you, you're really going to throw away 3 years over nothing? You're being absolutely ridiculous." Then bargaining. "I'll go to therapy, I'll change, I'll give you space. Whatever you need, just please don't do this." Then threats. "You'll never make it on your own. You have no job, no money, no skills. You'll be crawling back within a month." Then love bombing. "You're the love of my life. I can't breathe without you. Remember how good we were together? We can have that again." Then rage. "You're an ungrateful, delusional bitch. I wasted 3 years on you. Don't ever contact me again." Then back to love bombing. "I didn't mean that. I'm just hurt. Please, Sarah, I love you." 214 messages in 3 days. Sarah's fingers hovered over her phone 1,000 times. The urge to respond, to explain, to comfort him was overwhelming. The trauma bond pulled at her like a physical force. This is where most people break. This is where the narcissist's training kicks in and you go back. Because the guilt is unbearable. Because you miss the good times. because you think maybe you overreacted. Maybe it wasn't that bad. But Sarah had one advantage: Emma. Every time she wanted to respond, she called Emma instead. Every time she felt guilty, Emma reminded her of the things Marcus had said and done. Every time she romanticized the relationship, Emma read back Sarah's own notes from the months of abuse. "He's hurting," Sarah said on day 3, crying. "He's manipulating," Emma corrected firmly. "He's not hurt that he lost you. He's hurt that he lost control over you. There's a difference." On day 4, the messages stopped. Sarah felt relief and also terror. What was he planning? On day 5, she found out. Marcus had posted on social media a long, emotional message about how concerned he was about Sarah's mental health, how she'd suddenly left without explanation, how he was worried she was having a breakdown and needed help from anyone who knew her. The smear campaign had begun. Sarah's phone lit up with messages from acquaintances, from Marcus's friends, from people who barely knew her. "Are you okay? Marcus is so worried. Whatever's going on, you two can work through it. He seems like such a good guy." This was the moment Sarah understood something crucial. Narcissists don't just control you, they control the narrative. She had 2 choices: engage in a public battle, trying to explain and defend herself, which would only give Marcus more ammunition and more attention, or walk away completely. Let the people who believed his story believe it. Trust that the people who truly knew her would see the truth, and build a new life where his opinion and his flying monkey's opinions simply didn't matter anymore. It was one of the hardest decisions of her life. But Sarah chose silence. She chose dignity. She chose herself. She blocked Marcus everywhere. She blocked anyone who came at her with his narrative. She created a clean, firm boundary. Her new life had no space for his chaos. And slowly, painfully, beautifully, the fog began to lift. 6 months later, Sarah sat in her tiny studio apartment, the one she could barely afford with her new job as a teaching assistant at a community art center, with a paintbrush in her hand. The canvas in front of her was a mess of colors. Not the careful, controlled painting she used to make. Something wilder, angrier, more honest. She was painting her way back to herself. The healing wasn't linear. Some days, she woke up strong, clear, grateful. Other days, she woke up doubting everything, missing the familiarity of the relationship, wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake. But those bad days were getting fewer and farther between. Sarah had learned some crucial lessons. Lesson 1. Trust your discomfort. When something feels wrong in your relationship, even if you can't articulate why, even if the other person has a logical explanation for everything, trust your gut. Your body knows when it's in danger long before your mind catches up. Lesson number 2. Love shouldn't require you to disappear. Real love celebrates who you are. It doesn't demand that you become smaller, quieter, less. If you've lost touch with your friends, your hobbies, your goals, your personality, that's not love. That's control. Lesson 3. You can't reason with someone who refuses to see you as fully human. Narcissists don't have conversations. They have performances. They don't consider your perspective. They manage your perception. Stop trying to make them understand. Start planning your exit. Lesson number 4. Leaving is brave, not cruel. You don't owe anyone your presence in their life, especially not someone who's using that presence to destroy you. Leaving an unhealthy relationship isn't abandonment. It's self-preservation. Lesson number 5. Healing happens in community. You can't recover from narcissistic abuse alone. You need people who validate your reality, who remind you who you were before the relationship, who hold space for your grief and rage and confusion. Find your Emmas. Let them help you. Lesson 6. No contact is a gift to yourself. Every time you engage with a narcissist, even to argue, to defend yourself, to seek closure, you're feeding the dynamic. True freedom begins when you stop explaining yourself to people who were never listening. Lesson number 7, reclaiming your identity. Takes time after years of being told who you are, what you think, what you want. You might not recognize yourself anymore. That's okay. You're not rebuilding the old you. You're discovering the new you. Be patient with that process. A year after leaving, Sarah had a solo art show at a local gallery. Nothing fancy. Just 12 paintings, each representing a stage of her journey from captivity to freedom. Marcus sent flowers to the gallery with a note. "Proud of you. I always knew you had this in you. Coffee sometime?" The old Sarah would have been moved. Would have thought maybe he'd changed. Would have considered giving him another chance. The new Sarah threw the flowers in the trash and didn't respond. Because she'd learned the most important lesson of all. The person you become after surviving narcissistic abuse is someone who knows their worth, guards their peace, and never settles for crumbs of affection from someone offering a feast of manipulation. So here's my question for you. What are you tolerating in your life that's slowly erasing who you are? Is there a relationship where you're constantly walking on eggshells? A person who makes you doubt your own reality? A dynamic where love feels like a transaction you can never quite afford? You don't need permission to leave. You don't need a dramatic reason. You don't need the other person to agree that the relationship is unhealthy. You just need to decide that you matter, that your peace matters, that your identity matters, that your life is too valuable to spend it managing someone else's ego. If Sarah's story resonated with you, I want you to do 3 things right now. 1. Screenshot this moment. Save this video. You're going to need reminders when the doubt creeps in, when the trauma bond pulls you back, when their voice in your head tells you you're overreacting. 2. Reach out to someone, one person who knew you before, one person who can be your Emma. You don't have to tell them everything right now. Just reconnect. Just remind yourself that there's a world outside this relationship. 3. Ask yourself this question and answer it honestly. If my best friend was in this relationship, what would I tell them to do? Then give yourself the same advice you'd give someone you love. Your life is waiting for you on the other side of this relationship. Your identity is waiting to be reclaimed. Your peace is waiting to be protected. But none of it can happen until you take the first step. And that step doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be toward yourself. Because you deserve a life where you're not afraid, where you're not performing, where you're not disappearing. You deserve to come alive again. And I promise you, on the other side of that fear, that guilt, that trauma bond, there's a version of yourself that's been waiting for you to come home. So come home. Not to a person, not to a relationship, not to someone else's idea of who you should be. Come home to yourself. And watch how everything changes when you finally do.